Oh, oh gosh. Hi there, Sid Krofft friends. It's me, Toilet Paper, and today on Sid Krofft's show, it's Land of the Lost Day. So I'm in the jungle here, and I'm trying to find my way back home. I've been in the jungle since last weekend, and oh, it's so dark and scary here. I hope I can find my way back in time to see Sid's show because it's just so good. I don't want to. Oh no, my flashlight went out. Oh, there's so many scary creatures around here in the jungle. I don't know what I'm gonna do. What are you doing? What do you mean? What am I doing? Why are you in the bathroom with the lights off? What? How dare you? I was in the jungle. You're not in the jungle. You're in the bathroom, and we have to use the bathroom. Okay. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm super excited that you are tuned in to Sid Krofft because this is going to be an absolutely amazing afternoon with the grandfather of puppetry, Sid Krofft. All right, Sid, take it away. It's all yours. Turn the light back off. I want to go back exploring.
Ladies and gentlemen, the unusual artistry of Sid Krofft.
Toilet, you look great. Oh my God, all the people that you have to service today. And thank you Toilet, thank you so much.
Sounds so wrong.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to it. 7 months ago, I had 2 guests on my show with the same name. And both really were very, very famous. And the show was a huge, huge hit with a huge audience watching. I had one of the guests was the one and only Chaka from our biggest hit television series, Land of the Lost. And that was 1974. How about that? And my second guest, actually just Chaka was coming on by himself. And then a friend of mine said to me, God, wouldn't it be great if you can find him, to find the Chaka, the graffiti artist that called himself Chaka, and he left, oh God, his Chaka marks all over Los Angeles, thousands and thousands of times. And of course, the police were trying to catch him, and I think he told me, I might be mistaken, that they did catch him, and he got 18 months in jail. Isn't that insane? But you want to know something? Most of us make almost one mistake in our lifetime, and I've always said to everybody, we learn from your mistakes. And I know Chaka, the graffiti artist, right now, I understand that he's a famous artist out there. And so congratulations and thank you so much for coming on 7 months ago. Okay, Land of the Lost has lived on millions and millions of fans and memories all these years. But there is a huge, big fan out there, and I think he lives in Los Angeles, or Kelly told me yesterday she thought he lives in Orange County, and this fan has kept Land of the Lost series alive with the greatest posts that almost every day he posts posts on Instagram and also on TikTok. And so, you know, I want everybody out there to listen to what I have to say about him for a second. He's so devoted to Land of the Lost, and which was, you know, our 5th Saturday morning series, and like I said earlier, our biggest hit. And he posts on Instagram and TikTok, but listen to this. I don't think I've ever really given him enough credit, and I feel bad about it, but he's coming on, and I'm going to apologize to him. And it's so exciting, you know, that he's coming on the show, because he has done so much to keep Land of the Lost alive and all of its characters, and I thank you so much. So, okay, today let's step through the porthole of Land of the Lost, and the 2 guests that we're having on, we're having once again Phil Paley, who played the one and only Chaka, and George Balin, the devoted, huge fan that grew up watching every single episode of Land of the Lost and has kept it alive. And ladies and gentlemen, I would love you to come on, Philip and George, so we can go back in memories. Philip, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Philip. And George is coming on too.
That's right.
George, yeah, we got to have both of you.
How are you, Philip?
I am doing great. Here. Happy Sunday.
Hey, George, there you
Thank
are.
you,
Hey,
sir.
No, thank you so much. And before we start, I want everybody out there, and I know we've got thousands of people watching us.
Thousands.
I want to personally thank you, George, because I know we talk, and it's been really, really short, maybe at some of the Comic-Cons that you've attended, and you're, as I told everybody earlier, you're a huge, huge fan of Land of the Lost, and thank you so much. And you know, I also have to tell everybody that on between Instagram and TikTok, there's 45,000 what are they, hits? No, 45,000 followers. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah. And I lost my way for a second, but thank you again, George.
Thank
you. Okay.
Oh.
Now we're going to talk first to Philip, you know, because September 4th, can you believe it? 1974. Land of the Lost, that's when it premiered on NBC, and it was on for 3 years. And then it came back in, I guess it was, no, I think it was 77, yeah. 77 when it came back. And then CBS had it in 1985 and 87. So it has lived an incredible life, and it still lives on. You know, what is that, Philip? That's like 40 some odd years ago, right?
Well, it's 50 years
50.
From next year. Next year, in 2024, it'll be 50 years.
How come you look so young?
Well, I sleep in the refrigerator, just like
you do.
Like,
hey, Philip, you were 11 years old when you did Chaka. And I also, everybody congratulates you, because not only were you incredible playing that character, but you're an awesome actor at 11 years old. That's mind-boggling. It really is. And to learn that language, you know, that was just a language was made up by what was her name?
Victoria Franken.
Yeah, Victoria from UCLA. Yeah, linguist. Okay, wow. Hey, George, I know that in the early days of Instagram, not even Instagram, just in the early days of computers, you started posting, right?
His Wi-Fi is finicky right now. You would have to see the circle.
Yeah.
He's in space right now.
Are you in space? Can you hear me?
No, you're probably
Okay. Well,
the way he went.
Behind me.
Oh my God! How cool! But that's HR Puffin stuff. Yeah. How cool that you got it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You were there at the signing for that, right?
No, I wasn't there for this. I mean, at the artists.
When they had the opening at the art gallery.
No, I wasn't there. I got this afterwards, but I love it, and it makes me happy every time I look at it.
I have one too, and you know, and they gave me. They only gave me a couple, and I, of course, gave them to my best friends. Everybody wanted one. It's so beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, Shag is an amazing artist.
Yeah. And George, what happened? Are you coming?
He's coming back on.
Is he coming back?
Yeah.
No, we were in the middle.
Phil, okay, so when you went to go, and did you audition to become Chaka?
Of course.
Yes, yeah. I auditioned shortly after I was on the Tonight Show with my instructor Chuck Norris, and we did a little skit with Johnny Carson, and that generated a lot of interest, I guess, and so I got contacted by an agent, Mitzi McGregor, who handled a lot of young, child actors.
Yeah.
And the first thing she sent me out on was for this show, Land of the Lost, and I was really excited because she told me a little bit about it, that it was a Sid and Marty Krofft, show, and wow, I already love those shows, so this is going to be fantastic, and so I was really excited to go, and when I got there, I walked in, and there was a huge panel of executives. There's Sid and Marty, and then a huge panel of other executives, and then I think Dennis Steinmetz, the first director, was in there.
Right.
It was a lot of people. So, this is like serious business. And was standing in front of all of them, and then we just had conversation, and then I did some karate. And then somebody, I forget who it was, asked me to move like ape-like around the room, and it was like, okay. And so like I did some of that, and that was it. And oh, by the way, when I was going into the interview, Billy Barty was on his way out, and I loved Billy Barty, watching all the things he was on, all the shows, the Sid Marty Krofft shows. So I was like, wow, I'm up against Billy Barty for this. Really a surprise.
Well, because in our mind we want, when you're 11 or 10 years old or 9 or 8, can they handle this part? But you came in with a black belt and kicked the hell out of somebody in the room, and it was incredible. And we knew right away, that's a wrap, just like Witchy Poo. When she came into our office and jumped on the desk, we don't want to see any more people. No, and there were quite a list I remember, of kids that came in, but they couldn't handle it. And boy, we must have had a horseshoe up our you-know-what when you came in, because not only did this character become so important for this property, but everybody immediately fell in love with Chaka. Yeah.
Well, I guess I did good.
No, you definitely did. And George is agreeing. Hey, George, when you froze up, you keep freezing up.
Do I?
Where are you? Where are you, George? In Orange County?
I'm in Redondo Beach, so I'm relatively close to you. I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why you keep freezing up? We just cannot figure out the technology today, can we? But, you know, before you froze up, I was talking about, you know, the internet. And that's when you started posting, because you were a huge fan, right?
Right.
Tell us more about that.
So, you know, it was kind of the infancy of the internet, and I had taught myself how to build websites for a business I was in, and then back then anyone could register a domain name. So Land of the Lost was available, and I was like, I'm totally going to buy it at $6 a year so I can build a site and sort of connect with like-minded people, sort of, you know, for fun, just as kind of a hobby or whatever. And it kind of got big. I had a message board on there. A lot of people would post. They would talk about the episodes. They would talk about the actors, the writers. And it was like a little community. Even before, you know, anything, before there was social media, you had, you know, that was really the only way you could get together with people like that, was a bulletin board. Everyone would just post stuff and talk about episodes and theories, and people started submitting artwork, and they started submitting their own stories that they would write about the show. And it really started to grow from there, and it was so fun just to meet those people. I mean, I really did it at the beginning just for fun, you know, just for my own outlet.
But like I said earlier, George, I mean, you saw every episode. You were entranced with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you knew, I mean, it just blew me away that kids, come on, they were like 8, 9, 10 years old. They hooked on to Land of the Lost the way adults hooked on to Star Trek.
Yeah.
You know, and there were some very, very deep stories in Land of the Lost. But they understood, at last we were giving that age something adult, and they understood it. Because, you know, even when I started doing Puffin Stuff, which is our first show, I kept saying, you know, kids go to school 5 days a week, and I don't want to do Ring Around the Rosie, you know. I don't want to do that. Because I know that the parent is sitting in those days with their kids. And so I thought, wow, it needs to be written up to the adult level. And because of doing that, you know, the college, oh my God, the college kids, every Saturday morning, the Beatles, you know, ordered every show as it came off the press, you know, even before it was aired. And so, because they were locked in their hotel rooms. So, you know, it was really so important to me, because my act, to go back to my act, that was very adult, you know, because what's puppets for? Little kids. You know, what's magic for? Little kids at a birthday party. You know, just like David Copperfield took magic and brought it into the adult world. And then, of course, before Land of the Lost, you know, we did that adult only. You have to be 21 to see Les Poupées de Paris. Les Poupées de Paris, you know, it was just a gimmick, and it worked, you know, because, hey, almost every week, everybody, I keep telling everybody, go left, everybody goes right, you know, because, and that was my whole career. It didn't start with the banana splits or any of that. I mean, I was doing that 20 years before. You know, I traveled all over the world. But, okay, enough about me. Now we're going to get into you guys. You know, I know there were only 3 Pacunis, you know, yeah, and the leader, which was Joe Jamalva, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who did many shows for us. He started with us in Puppet Stuff. I think he was a tree. I hope you're listening. Thanks for being the tree in Puppet Stuff. Well, he was many characters.
Yeah.
And then Sharon Baird, you know, who did Pa. I mean, Sharon Baird in Puffin Stuff was Shirley. You know, I'm sorry, not Shirley. She was Judy the Frog. Yeah. I mean, because of Judy Garland. Yeah.
Well, and I think people forget she was an original Mouseketeer.
And a mouse. Yeah. Yeah.
Friends.
Yeah.
You know, they to all the way to the end. They, you know, stayed best friends.
Oh, and of course, when they did Crofticon, she was there, and we were like neighbors. We had her table was right behind me, and so we just had a blast. You know, I keep wanting her to come on. She lives in San Francisco, but she keeps telling me she doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, Kelly's going to work with you. And yeah.
She's in Reno.
Oh, she lives in Reno.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I screw things up. Come on. You got to give me a little tiny break. I mean,
interact.
Hey, Philip.
Yes.
And George, send me a picture when you're 93.
Exactly.
No, I don't even know. You know, I don't even know why I'm still here. You know, it's crazy. I keep asking my doctor, why am I here? You know, after all these years and all this stuff that I've done. But anyway, also, what's really important for the audience out there, we had 21 writers that wrote that show, and 98% of them were from Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because Star Trek was canceled for a short period. And so, wow, you know, and then of course, David, oh my God, he was the head writer and very young, yeah, you know, and David, I saw him not too long ago, and yeah, David Gerald, David Gerald. I'm the worst with names. That's one thing that I have to go to school, back to school for. And you know, they got when I did 2 minutes for a command performance in London. I was in a show in London, and I was asked the last minute to fill in for someone. It was a night of 100 stars, so the show was 5 hours long. They only let me do 2 minutes. But after it was over, you know, we all stood in a line, and the Queen came back with her lady in waiting. I want to hire her, the lady in waiting.
She's probably dead.
Yeah, because the lady in waiting would tell her everything. When she got to me, she said, "Oh, what cute little dollies." I almost gave her the finger. So I wouldn't even be here today. And I know some of the fans out there, you've heard that story before, but I love telling it because every time I tell a story, I get that image and I'm there for a moment, you know, and please don't get tired of me. I still have some stuff you've never heard before. Yeah. But hey, I'm doing all the talking. But you guys, also, Michael, who designed your costume and your makeup?
Michael Westmore.
Michael Westmore.
Are you asking them the questions, or are you just telling them?
I'm telling them too. Yeah. I'm asking and telling.
I remember.
I just want everybody out there to know that I still got it halfway.
That's good. Michael Westmore.
Oh my God! Did
comes from a family of amazing special effects.
makeup. Well, if you start naming the movies, the Academy Award, he must have 200 or more Academy Awards on his bar.
What was he doing on your show?
Yeah.
He created all the costumes for Chaka, the Pakunis, the Slee Stack.
The Slee Stack.
Yeah.
The Slee Stack was, you know what?
He creating it all. He had like a little house on the hill in the valley.
Yeah.
And all that stuff is being made in his garage.
I know it. And he used the wetsuit to do that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay, George. I know in the 90s when Rhino, yeah. Oh,
I thought you were going to say about the remake of the show. I was going to give a premature thumbs down.
Oh, no, not the
early 90s.
I don't even,
Planet of the Lost.
I don't even talk about it. What about the movie? I mean, come on. Like I said earlier, we all make mistakes in our lives.
True.
And there's nothing we can do about it. But I know that Rhino, that you did all the trivia. And, I'm putting all the pieces together. And you actually did interview Marty and myself for that, right?
Those early ones, no. I think you guys did when Universal grabbed the rights and made their own box set. You guys were on that. But the one that we did for Warner Brothers, which actually got nominated for a Saturn Award, had tons of interviews with the cast and the writers, Walter Koenig, Walker Edmiston, of course, who did so many,
great
voices
yeah.
for Sigmund. And the early tapes, we actually started on videotape, crazily enough. In the 90s, they released episodes on videotape, and there were no extras. They were sort of just feeling out, was there any interest? Were people going to buy this? Because I don't think anything had been released since maybe one time in the 80s. There was a couple of videotapes that were released. But then it started to get traction. I think more people got interested, and that's when they were like, okay, we're going to make a box set of the whole series and do it do it for the fans.
And it sold well, I guess. I don't know where the money is, I have no idea, and and then of course in 2008, or no, what am I?
2008.
Yeah.
2008.
No, 2008. 2008.
Close enough.
I will be.
Close
where
enough.
will I be? Hey, send me a picture at
Send him a picture
2008.
when you're there.
We'll go on a pylon.
Just send me a picture of what it's like. Are people flying around in glass tubes and stuff? Yeah. Oh, I'm going to miss out on all of that. But George, I know that you came and interviewed, quite a few of the actors and the director on the Land of the Lost movie. Yeah. That
was amazing. I mean, I would never imagine as a kid watching on TV that they were going to make this huge, high budget, enormous soundstage production with, Will Ferrell of all people, who, that was crazy. Like, he actually must have asked somebody, because when I walked in the room, he looked at me and addressed me personally as, by name. It was pretty weird. It was great.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's cool.
Yeah.
He's my neighbor. He lives in walking distance.
Oh, nice.
Haven't seen him in many years, but, they turned Land of the Lost into a Saturday Night Live sketch.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. there were, where was my family? Where was my Chaka?
Right.
They had an actor who was 8 feet tall bending over, and who played Chaka. It all really, really didn't work, but, I know that there's blame all the time when something doesn't work, but it wasn't my fault.
It's all right, they could do it again, do it right.
Yeah, okay, I want to ask you something. I know Gene Warren did the dinosaurs, and that was way, come on, 50 years ago. And stop motion now is mind-blowing. And I hope, and if you didn't see it, everybody out there, and I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago because I met Del Toro. I spent almost an hour with him and his wife. And if you've not seen Pinocchio, and please, Netflix is going to hate me for saying this, don't. I saw it twice on Netflix, and then I saw it at the Academy Theater, the new Academy Theater that seats 2,000 people. And, oh my God, you want to see something that you're going to remember, but in a theater. I know it's only playing in one theater right now, and it's won all the awards, and it's going to win the Academy Award. It has to. But I have
out.
Oh, you in a theater? It's worth wherever it's playing.
Where is it playing? Do you know offhand, or
No.
is it Hollywood?
What do I look like an information booth?
Well, why are you telling her about Pinocchio?
That's right. You're like you're the Great Oz.
No, but I got to tell you, everybody out there, wow, what is? Oh my God! No way! Is that?
No.
That's a replica, right?
Yeah.
It's
No,
not
these are
a real sweetback skull.
No, because that was made out of foam. Yeah.
We're in the Library of Skulls.
Yeah, it's funny. Some people who maybe are not familiar with the show or a casual fan, and they'll look at a clip and say, "Wow, the special effects were bad." And the fun retort is, it was made by an Academy Award-winning special effects house. So at the time, if you look at Star Wars, that's how they did stop motion in Star Wars. I mean, it was at the time groundbreaking, and literally, I think it was Excelsior Studios and the Warrens, Gene Warren and
That's right.
Gene Warren Jr. I mean, they had won the Oscar. I think it was 1960 for The Time Machine. So when you tell people that, it's like, oh, okay, you're right. At the time, it was amazing.
Hey, George, I don't know, maybe it was a year or 2 or 3 ago. I lose track of time. But they had 5 little kids. I don't know. It was a show. They wanted comments from little kids on the old television shows, back in the 70s and so. And so they showed them Land of the Lost, and this kid, he was like, oh, it was so good. He was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and he said, what you just said. He said, that is, I don't know where he learned this word, that is the tackiest special effects. Have they ever heard of CGI? He was no more than 6 or 7 years old. And he said, and then this little girl, she argued with him. She said, I think it's got a lot of imagination. And I don't know why you're talking that way. And he said, I will never change my mind. This is the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. And I don't show me anymore. And the kid stormed off.
It's funny. There's a lot of young fans. When I'm lucky enough to go with Phil and Kathy and Wesley sometimes to these shows, and there's a lot of kids who show up. You know, their parents were fans, and they come and they're dressed up as one of the characters, and they know everything about the show.
Well, see, now back, just to step back, and then we'll get to Land of the Lost. Step back to Puffin stuff for a second. You know, because the adult, his mom, and hopefully, and dad, because it's Saturday, would sit with him. They didn't push him in front of a TV set and used it as a babysitter. And when a joke that a kid wouldn't understand, when he saw his mom and dad laugh, he laughed too, but didn't understand it. But years later, you know, he did. He figured it out. But the same thing what you just said, George, was that the Land of the Lost, the movie, who was it for? Because it was for, it should have been for kids, and the parents took them because they said, hey, Jimmy, hey, this is what I grew up with, you know, and this is the show that I love, and let's go see the movie. They couldn't even bring kids to see the movie Land of the Lost that cost $200 million.
It wasn't for kids. It was for adults. It was in a comedy, you know.
But why?
Comedy.
Yeah, but why was it for adults that didn't even, you know, they couldn't bring their kids and show them a show that they grew up with? That was so bizarre, wasn't it?
It was. It, you know, just it was for a different audience.
I think they were going for that 20 to 35-year-old, let's get a crazy hit movie, raunchy, you know. I've actually never seen it because everyone told me not to watch it. No offense to people who were.
I'm not offended. No, it's fine.
I've seen it a couple times. I just watched it recently again. I was like, was this really that horrible? I mean, when I went to the premiere, you know, I mean, I enjoyed watching it, but I was like, this is not like a good use of the original story. But, you know, it is another version of it, you know. And so, you know, I enjoyed it on some level, but, you know, does it hold up and pay homage in a good way to the original? Not really, but, you know, and I watched it again recently. It was okay.
Yeah, but you know, where were the problem with a lot of movies? It has to have a heart, you know, and a soul, and there was no heart. It was just one, you know, one Saturday night gag after another.
Comedy, you know, like, you know, it was just kind of cheap comedy. I you know, but
and where were my kids? Where was my Chaka, you know, and where was the baby dinosaurs? That's what, you know, tugged at kids' hearts, you know. That's like a pet. It was her pet, and she had to give it back to the mom, you know. I mean, all those stories, it was unbelievable. But I also want everybody to know, in 1974, each episode was done. Now, I might be wrong, but it was no more than $60,000 an episode, because all we got for Puffin stuff was 55. So they might have given us, you know, and it was also NBC. NBC wanted to pick up Puffin stuff, but they offered us, we lost $1 million because it was shot at Paramount, you know, and we shot it on film. And we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We never did it before. Again, I've been so lucky. You know, we've been so lucky in casting the people that we've cast in every one of those shows. And most of them were people, my friends, that kept saying to me, oh, Sid, I love you. And, you know, oh, my God, what do you want to do, ruin my career? You know, a kid show? That means, you know, in Hollywood, that means I'm on my way out, you know. That's the end of my career. Oh my God. Okay, but you want to know something? Here we are 50 years later, and we're still talking about it. How many shows, you know, Planet of the Apes was the big movie at that time, you know, and that's where Chaka, you know, that's why that character was created.
That's where my wardrobe came from. Leftovers from that.
Yeah, of course, because
Yeah.
he did that movie, and it was just amazing. We never saw anything like that, you know. And Land of the Lost, you know, there was nothing like it for little kids ever. You know, they just had those cartoons, you know, the Roadrunner or whatever, which was brilliant. All those, you know, cartoons. When I went to the movies, they'd always show a cartoon before the movie, you know, and we couldn't wait, you know, a Warner Brother cartoon, yeah, and that was. Let me tell you about how this idea came from, and I know that there are a lot of new people every week on my show, and you know, people are watching us from all over the world. Wow. How do I look? Am I okay?
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, you know, the first movie I saw was The Wizard of Oz. You've heard that before. The second movie I saw, because I got in free to a theater in Providence, Rhode Island, because there was a couple that lived upstairs from us, and they didn't have any kids, and they adopted me because I was like so far out as a kid. You know, I didn't go play with the other kids. I, you know, played with my puppet. And so that's all I was interested in, you know, in being a puppeteer. Okay, the second, and he opened and closed the curtains. And so he would sneak me in free. We couldn't afford a theater to go see. That was 50 cents. You know, that was a lot of money then.
Did he sneak
And
through the like the fire escape?
no, backstage. I'd have to come backstage, and then he would peek through the curtain. And if the manager wasn't in the auditorium, then he'd say, "Okay, run out and sit in the first seat, way on the outer aisle, you know, and just, you know,
Be quiet.
hide yourself, hide yourself." I never saw a movie before, yeah, and so the second movie, which was very, very odd for a little kid to see, you know, was Dr. Cyclops. It was a horror movie where he shrunk these kids, and, you know, oh my God, it was frightening. I mean, it was nightmare time. And I was only 10, 11 years old. The third movie I saw was 1 Million BC with Victor Mature, right?
Yep.
And did you ever see it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I saw
Of course. I know you have, George, right? You're frozen again in time.
Dr. Cyclops looks scary.
You know what's causing all this? Because you're living in luxury at the beach, in beautiful beach, you know.
Terrible Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Great view. Terrible Wi-Fi.
And so and it was, Land of the Lost was our fifth show. So the fourth show was Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. And I just couldn't. I was having nightmares trying to come up with the next show, because the networks always waited for us to come in every year, all three networks, and then they would buy anything. We didn't even do a pilot, you know. And so there was a friend of mine who, when he lived in New York, and he also worked for 20th Century Fox, but in New York, in development, and he came out here to present something to them, and he stayed at my house, and his name was Alan Foshko, and I had a huge collection of National Geographic, you know, because the beautiful, beautiful photographs. And he asked me, he would do collages of his presentation. And he cut all these pictures out of magazines. And he said, do you mind if I just look through? I don't remember what project he was working on. And I looked over his shoulder, and there was a whole book on dinosaurs. And I said, Alan, wow, wait a minute, because I'm going out of my mind here. You know, let's take a strong look at that, because I would love to do. And he said, that's going to be really expensive, you know, and he I don't think he tried to talk me out of it, but anyway, and we started ripping pages out of my geographic, you know, and there was a lizard in that magazine, and that's where the sleeves there, you know, there were apes and gorillas and all kinds of, yeah, and that's where the whole idea came from. And he helped me put a collage together. And the original Land of the Lost, everybody, was almost like Swiss Family Robinson. That was the whole idea, a family, you know. But when all the writers came in, you know, and of course you got to have quite a bit of information for them to hook onto. And David Gerald, you know, wow. It was Gene Roddenberry. Let me take a sip of water.
Take a sip.
Okay. Gene Roddenberry was shooting, this is before Land. No, we just got picked up. Yeah. And we had no idea, you know, putting a crew together or anything like that. I mean, hadn't gotten there yet. And Gene Roddenberry was shooting on the next stage, and I think we were shooting Sigmund or something. Yeah, it must have been Sigmund, because Sigmund was a huge hit. We did a lot of episodes. And so I heard that Gene Roddenberry was on the next stage, and of course I wanted to meet him. And I went, and he knew, you know, from our other shows, our 4 shows that were on the air. And I started telling him about Land of the Lost and the idea. And he said, it sounds real interesting, but, you know, hoping that he would hook onto it. He said, you know, there's this young guy, and that was David Gerald. And David never heard this story because his agents sent him to our office. And so I'm just trying to put all the pieces together here, because, you know, it's so long ago that you just don't know. And so much has happened in my career. But anyway, it was Roddenberry that really, you know, I think I went into the office and said, you know, look up this guy on Star Trek, and then of course Star Trek was it was luck. It was real luck. Star Trek was canceled, and then he just brought in. He was young. He's in his early 20s,
yeah. And
he was the showrunner. You know. Well,
and he had written one of the most popular Star Trek episodes, which was Trouble with Tribbles.
Tribbles, yeah. I think he won an award too, didn't, or many. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the Land of the Lost writers were, you know, heavily awarded science fiction writers that were hugely popular.
Well, come on, there was nothing like it, and it still exists, you know. But okay, but just to get back to the first movie I saw, you know, uh, I'm sorry, not the first movie.
The Lost.
No. Okay, The Wizard of Oz, of course, stayed. That's what got me into show business. I didn't know if I wanted to be. I knew I couldn't be an actor. I was too tall to be, a munchkin. But I knew when I saw my first movie, I knew, oh my God, that's the world I want to be in. I'm young, and didn't have any help from my family. They just thought, my dad is the one that said to me, "You want a dolly and you're a boy? You're a boy?" So that stuck in my mind. Then, of course, when the Queen said it, oh, but cute little dollies, I could have still been in the tower, the London Tower, in chains, yeah, if I went through, yeah. No, this has been a really, really interesting show, and it's always, it's a Land of the Lost is, wow, I'm so proud. I'm so proud of it because that it has lived this long, along with our other shows, but nothing like Land of the Lost.
We can give a shout out to Wesley and Kathy and Spencer.
Oh,
and this guy right here.
Joe and Sharon.
Yep.
And Sharon. Are they all watching? Oh, come on. Wesley, I know you're in Mexico.
Hi, Wesley.
Yeah, I hope you're watching. No, they all watch me. I see their names come up every week, and I don't talk about Land of the Lost every week. I've been on for 3 years, and it's frightening. It's really scary because I think about it all week long, and you guys, thank you so much because you guys really came in. I had a cancellation. What, Kelly? 2 days ago, right? Yeah. And thank you so much. But what an interesting idea this is. And it was Kelly, that said to me, wow,
Kelly.
because I thought I don't have a guest. And everybody should have a Kelly.
Everyone should have a Kelly.
Kelly made Sid do that.
Well, we're happy to come on your show last minute if there's a cancellation and talk about Lost. There's lots to talk about. And,
There's so much to
always,
talk about.
Yeah. And what a great idea, especially you coming on too, George, because I know you guys are like best friends, and both of you have done so much for me. And if I haven't thanked you enough, I'll do it over and over again because there's always so much on my mind, and I get mad at myself that I don't spend enough time, but oh my God, when we were doing Land of the Lost, the park, and Donnie Marie, and the puppet shows, those puppet shows at Six Flags, I directed, I created, I did the music for. It took a year of just, I dedicated my whole life, but to this day, honestly, I don't believe I even get paid for this, I mean, what a gift I was given, and
Yep.
And my mind is still working, sort of. No, it's still working.
Well, let's do some more.
Yeah.
It ain't
no.
It ain't over till it's over.
No, that's right.
So the fat
Until the light goes out. No, I don't even think about that. I just always think about, waking up every day. Yeah.
I'm live.
Farmer's Market.
Farmer's Market.
Salad.
Yeah. How do you know I go to Farmer's Market?
I know everything.
No, you really? Oh, God, you're like a cross spy.
No, God, no. Nope.
No.
I just watched you on this, and I found out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go there every Sunday. I didn't go today because they said it was going to rain.
Oh, really?
And I think it's the first time in 50 years that I've missed they're going to freak out. All the farmers.
I was going to say, your regulars are going to miss you.
Oh, yeah. They all know me. And they, when I go next week, for sure, rain or shine, I don't know, and it's gotten cold, 50 degrees.
Yeah, I'm not.
I mean,
We're winter in California, but it's cold. It's cold.
That's
Not that
cold for us. 50 degrees, we freeze our ass off.
Yep.
And I know everybody out there, there's like the Middle West, it's like 20,
Actually
30
cold.
below zero or
That's
something.
right.
Honestly, I'm not complaining. Okay. Yeah. Hey, guys, thank you so much, George. Thank you so much, Philip.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. This has been a lot of fun.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, and it was really interesting. Some of the stuff I'm sure they've heard before, but like I said, I don't have 25,000 followers, but I have almost 24. So tell your friends.
Wait.
Tell your friends, because that's my fuel. Every time I look, I think, how many new people are following me? No, and I've got some really great guests coming, and maybe. No, I'm not even going to until it really happens. I got a couple of biggies that just have blown me away. Katie Couric watches the show. Anderson Cooper watches the show. It's crazy. It's just because, you know why? It's real. It comes from everybody's heart. Yeah. And so thank you so much.
Yeah.
And
Kelly.
I'm going to see everybody next week. And
Thanks, Kelly.
Kelly just waved.
Yay, Kelly.
And I'll see you next week, to be continued. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Sid.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And
Bye.